Okay, dude, I'm on my way to work. I work from 9 to 5 and then train a client at 6 tonight. But if you get a chance and you have any thoughts on what's going on, just audio me. I wasn't even looking on what was going to happen May 8th, 7 days before the 17th day of the second month, which is May 15th. But it is Victory Day, dude. And all of a sudden, these articles started popping up, and I'm like, Victory Day? Yeah, Victory Day in Europe is May 8th, and the Russian parade for that Victory Day is May 9th. And Zelensky's shooting his mouse off from Ukraine, saying, oh, you're going to regret that day. And then I saw that video that happened 3 years ago in 2022 on the day, May 9th, of Zelensky saying, oh, we'll have victory, we'll celebrate victory over Russia on Victory Day. So I'm like, man, what is going on? I mean, you got to think too, that Jesus said that he's going to, in Revelation 11, that he's going to destroy those who destroy the earth, and that the wicked have their plans. So you could tell this is a coordination, man. It's a watershed event. Trump is part of the beast system. He's not like a hero over the beast system. He's just like this little part of it, that pops up at the end. That kind of the spirit he's under. You know what I'm saying? Shooting his mouth off and all prideful, and he's got Israel in a state of pride. And we know that pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit, before a fall. So we know that the United States, Israel, they're being set up for a fall. Because the United States isn't going to be there to help Israel. We're going to be either busy surviving ourselves or attacking others. Bigger fish to fry sort of situation. That's why Israel gets moved in on. But something's going to trigger Israel where they're going to see the opportunity. Let's nuke Iran now, or Iran, hear about it, get the jump on them, and try to nuke them first. But you can see all this whole watershed event. Shelves expecting to be empty, or the ports starting to dry up, later this month, and India, Pakistan. They're trying to get India on the EU side. The West, keep India in the West and out of the BRICS nation, and let Pakistan go. They're using that wedge between them to isolate India, because India's got as many people, if not more now, than China. So we need India on our side because China is clearly on the other side. We're waging war against China. So you see this split in the world. Like during the 42-month tribulation of the Gentiles, the world was one. Okay, they all, not saying that there was no conflicts or anything, but as far as the COVID thing, they're all one mind, dude. They all gave their power to the beast. So obvious now. And now afterward, God has them in derision. Okay, that's why their plans aren't going to come to pass. So you can see this all coming to a head, and possibly this month, around the time of second Passover, and 5 months out from the fall feast and the end of Feast of Tabernacles. So you can see it coming together, man. And then 7 months later, you're back at second Passover after the dead are buried. And because so many touch the dead, they can't celebrate Passover properly on first Passover. So they do it second Passover to fulfill the whole reason for second Passover. I mean, one can say, well, that's not part of the seven feasts. Well, dude, it is an appointed time given by God to Moses in answer to, a request. Like, hey, we touched dead bodies. What are we going to do? Let me go ask the Lord. And that's God's new appointed time, a second chance to celebrate Passover. So, dude, May isn't the time when sudden destruction happens. I don't know. I can see sudden destruction happening in May. the snare triggered. Nobody's escaping, and possibly resurrection happening on Pentecost. If the flood is, if the day of the flood's the 17th, and it's what is that, like 20 days later, you got Pentecost. If the day of the flood in the Septuagint is correct and it's the 27th, you're talking 10 days later is Pentecost. So it's interesting, man. Interesting times we live in. So yeah, I'm looking May 8th as a possible 7-day warning to sudden destruction. It may happen that way, man. And you got to think, it does fit with the 1 Thessalonians 5:3. When they say peace and safety, not when there is peace and safety, but when they're saying it. What are they saying? Well, they're celebrating Victory Day over Hitler, dude. A type and shadow of Antichrist spirit, a type and shadow of Haman, the Jew killer. Okay, so they're saying peace and safety. They're celebrating it. Okay, and Putin declares a ceasefire between May 8th and the 12th, the day before Second Passover. And so it's not only saying peace and safety; it's a token of peace and safety. It's not actually peace and safety. They're just saying it. They're declaring it. Declaring a ceasefire is saying peace and safety. Celebrating Victory Day in a parade is saying peace and safety. And then sudden destruction comes on them. What if it's like the days of Noah? God gives a warning, and he tells us the end time warning is when they say peace and safety. Okay? So he actually has already told us what the warning would be. It's when they say peace and safety. That is the warning. I mean, you could say, oh, God's going to, speak to our heart, or a voice is going to come from the sky and say, 7 days, guys. But he already did that in 1 Thessalonians 5:3 through the Holy Spirit, through the Apostle Paul, when he said, when they say peace and safety, then, okay, well, as in the days of Noah, then would be 7 days. If it mirrors, and there's no biblical reason to say that could be wrong. In fact, there's more biblical reason to say then isn't that day, okay, May 8th or Victory Day, as an example of the most recent watch period we're looking at. But there's more biblical reason to say, yeah, that is the gap. Then sudden destruction comes on them. Okay, so when they're saying peace and safety, it doesn't necessarily mean immediately. It means then a 7-day period later, sudden destruction comes upon them, like labor pains. Ugh, and they shall not escape. And this is what we're to pray to be counted worthy to escape from. Now, whether that means escape through it, which I tend to believe that that's it, we're going to escape through it, whether, spiritually, of course, but even physically, to be accounted worthy to escape and to stand before the Son of Man. So whether that happens through physical death or preservation and, and remaining alive, I think it's just God's choice, dude. I think it's God's choice. Like you said, we don't know if we're going to survive this short period. He said, go into your chambers, my people, and let the indignation pass, for it'll be for a little moment. Go into your chambers for a little moment. So it's not this long, drawn out 3.5 years of hell on earth. No, the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't say it's 3.5 years. It says it's times, and half a time. And if that's 3.5 feasts, dude, that's 5 months. I find it really interesting, dude, that this Victory Day parade, the Victory Days on the 8th, the parade's on the 9th, where we secretly just ship $50 million worth of stuff to Ukraine, even though they said we're going to cut them off. You know, Trump is saying anybody, country, individual that buys any oil or petrochemicals from Iran will be secondarily sanctioned. That's an embargo, dude. This is war. That's China. China buys 80%. You know, most of their oil comes from Iran. You know, this is a direct threat to Iran's 90 million people that they have to feed, and China's already having civil unrest because they can't pay their factory workers because the demand from America is fallen off. Not the demand, but you know, the tariffs. You know, so the orders aren't being placed. So what are these factory workers going to do? If they can't, they can make it, but if they can't sell it, they might as well make something else, like instruments of war. They got that production, they got that capability. I mean, we still make weapons, but man, yeah. What I find interesting too, if you want to comment on it, is that the conclave begins May 7th, so a day before the 8th. But the moon was sighted on April 28th at 7:45 p.m. in Jerusalem. So technically, the first day of the second month started on the 28th, which would put the 10th day on the 7th, and that's when the conclave to pick the pope is. And that's 7 days out before, instead of the 15th being the 17th day of the second month, it would be the 14th. Okay, what's interesting about that? Well, May 14th is the 77th anniversary of the founding of Israel to the day. That would be the day of the flood. So that's another interesting thing. So, I mean, Ronnie, we could be like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last quote unquote normal week. Okay. And then there's been nothing normal about it. It's been crazy. You know, F-18s falling off of aircraft carriers and fires in Israel and explosions in Tehran's port and all these things leading up to the sudden destruction are just falling like dominoes. I mean, it's obvious, and yet it's still coming like a thief. So that's the crazy part. So yeah, man, I think we're here. I mean, it's broke, dude. Trump is instrumental in breaking the system. Okay, China makes the stuff, we sell the stuff. That's how the global economy actually works at the foundation. China makes stuff, we sell stuff. Okay, now China makes stuff, we don't sell it. It breaks. Okay, and it's already broken. Los Angeles port's going to dry up this week. By May 10th, it'll be in the papers that, you know, the Los Angeles port is not only light, but it's super light, and truckers are getting laid off, and it'll domino effect, man. It can't be stopped now. Even if Trump said, okay, no more tariffs, it would take months for it to even normalize. If it did, if China was like, okay, let's let bygones be bygones and everything's fine. Dude, I'm serious. It's broke now. Okay, it's not like we have to wait for it to be broke. It's broke now. What it is, it's a delayed effect. It's coming like a thief. The trade war, the real war, it's like set in stone. It just hasn't got here yet. Okay, the physical part hasn't got here yet because it just takes time. It takes time for ships to get here, and it takes time for inventories to run dry and everything. But when it happens, there won't be an escape. When this thing happens, there won't be an escape. Okay, and like you said, we're going to see this. We're going to be here to see this. Okay, if Israel is about to be chastised, okay, the nation of Israel, and almost annihilated, okay, because that's the chastisement on the Jews. Okay, where do you think the other Jews are? Most other Jews are in the United States. They face chastisement too. It's a chastisement on his people, not just land, but his people. And a lot of his people are here. Okay, so the chastisement's going to be here. We're not going to be spectators on our phone going, oh, poor Israel. Oh, those poor Jews, you know. No, we're going to be affected. And it's going to give a whole new meaning to those who are alive and remain. Sounds a lot alike those who survive and remain. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, we're not going to be exempt from this. You know, if the Lord chooses you to die before then you're blessed. You're blessed. And if the Lord chooses to let you remain alive unto his coming, you're blessed. Live or die, we are the Lord's.